This is continuing coverage of the case against Lori Vallow Daybell from the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today.
Obviously, one of the things that doesn't make her look very good is the phone call to get the life insurance money pretty quick after he died. But again, if you have a spouse and there's a life insurance policy and you know there's a funeral coming up, you're going to have to pay for that. There's expenses that come along with things of that nature. And I don't know what her financial situation was, but some could argue that, yeah, I mean, maybe you do call it quicker than other people do if you know you need to get that money. There really isn't anything wrong or illegal with calling right away. It shows a bit of cold or callousness, but that's in the eye of the beholder as well. If you're in a real shitty relationship and you're ready to have it be done, not through death, but you're ready, divorce, and you're just, okay, I can't wait till this is over. You may not necessarily be in that super warm mindset of, I need a few more days to comprehend this. Maybe you already have. Maybe you've already done your grieving, and now, okay, well, there's money, let's take it. Not a crime, but not that great of a look. How do you think it read to the jury?
Yeah, I think all of that is true. On top of that, my understanding is that Charles Vallow, the victim, was in the insurance industry, and Lori knew that, and they had set up, insurance policies together. And so, the fact that she had knowledge of this policy and thought she was the beneficiary, which she wasn't, had been changed, and then took steps to pursue that policy upon a person's death. That's what we would expect somebody to do. That's sort of the legal process one would take. And so Lori, I think, really made a point several times in the trial to say, or to intimate that, hey, me trying to find this insurance policy, that was just sort of par for the course. It was consistent with our dynamic and what Charles did, and there wasn't anything criminal about it. And I think she did a reasonably good job at conveying that to the jury.
Yeah, I agree. She did better than I certainly expected on that. We didn't really get to see anything good about Lori, though, and I'm one other than what she tried to present as herself. And that's what I'm wondering how a jury is going to feel about it. The fact that she's not taking her turn as a defense. I'm wondering if that's going to come in closing arguments or an attempt at that in closing arguments. But it helps when you have a third party that's willing to go up there and say something nice, like she's a good mom or, whatever. She makes delicious enchiladas. We learned that she makes her famous enchiladas every time the family got together, back when the family gave a shit about her. That's about it. It's like, oh, she makes great enchiladas and she's accused of murdering her ex-husband. But other than that, there isn't anyone. I'm wondering, what was there difficulty, you think, in her getting anyone to take the stand, to say anything good? Do you think she knew that anybody who was going to come up there wasn't necessarily going to be on her side, but yet she would be calling them as her own defense witness? Yeah, how does that weigh to a jury when you only get one side saying this is a really shitty person, but we don't necessarily truly have the definitive let's do the hit on Charles other than code language? It is a lot of this that's going to be based on what they feel about Lori, and with not a clear smoking gun fact of a hit.
Tony, based on the letter of the law, the jury is only supposed to consider the evidence. They're not supposed to consider, what kind of a person the defendant may be. But look, this is a murder trial. These jurors are human beings, and they are absolutely making observations and perceptions and judgments about the character of the defendant. Lori could have tried to call some witnesses to testify, for example, to a reputation for gentleness or for non-confrontation or something like that, if she had not already alienated all those folks out of her life. She did not do that, perhaps because she didn't know to do that. But yeah, the jury is left with kind of only one impression, and that's the impression given by the government, and it's not a good one.
The prosecution certainly did get the timeline out and kind of locked her into a corner. They showed that she was in contact with Chad, tried to get Social Security benefits the day after the murder, and then got married 4 months later. Obviously, she didn't go up to defend herself, but with closing arguments, How would, I mean, if you were representing her, or if you were to be advising Lori of how to completely end this with her closing arguments to counter that, what would you be telling her?
I think you have to try and neutralize it. You have to sort of sanitize it from any criminal implication. And so, you talk about, like I said, the fact that Charles Vallow was in the insurance business. Lori knew of this policy. She was just doing what she was lawfully allowed to do, which is pursue it. And then, marriages have turmoil. There's no surprise about that. The jurors would likely understand that. And so a person, choosing to go with someone else with whom they were in love, even shortly after the dissolution of prior marriage and the death of the prior partner, is not unheard of, and it's not something that is criminal by any means. And that is sort of the direction I think a defense attorney would take in the closing argument. I can't wait to see how Lori styles.
I'm curious, and I'm also curious on this angle. In the opening statements, we saw a little emotion from Lori. We saw her cry or appear to cry a little bit. I don't know if it was real or not, but she certainly, checked that box or attempted to. I'm wondering if we're going to see some remorse or anything in the end here. Not a remorse in the sense of I did it and I feel really bad, but some remorse in the sense that, oh, my life got so turned upside down. My brother, went too far. I mean, there is no throwing of Alex under the bus or really anything here. She's standing by him as this was completely justified. She could have gone down the road that, I wasn't expecting this, and he can't testify anymore. I'm kind of surprised she didn't go down that road at all. I was not part of this decision. Yeah, we were talking about Nephi, but we talk about religious things all the time. I misinterpreted that or something. Do you think we're going to see some more emotion in the closing arguments to try and play to the jury's that emotional side? She is a master manipulator. I'm just wondering how good she still is at it.
If it could be a genuine expression of emotionality along the lines of what you said, like, hey, things weren't going great with Charles, but I'm devastated that my partner is gone, and that, gosh, now my brother is gone. He was mixed up in this. This tore our family apart. That this was a horrible tragedy for us, and I really feel bad about everything involved, but it's not a crime. I think that would be necessary to kind of combat some of the other impressions you see on the body cam. The day the police responded to Charles' death, at times Lori has a smile on her face. She jokes around about a neighbor at one point, and that is just not the demeanor one would expect from a person who was innocently caught up in this interfamilial murder.
hmm The fact that they also have, I mean, Ned, that was the part that did get in, that was kind of supernatural and weird, that he was possessed by, Ned. I always say Ned Ryerson because that's what I always think of with Groundhog Day. But Ned, I think he has a last name, but I don't remember. We got that in there. So you're dealing with someone who believes that her ex is possessed. She never even countered that. Not like, that's not what I meant. It was just not even addressed. That shows a very unstable human being. That shows someone who is not in the right mind. But this is taking place in Arizona. There still is, a larger Mormon community out that direction that, or even some pretty religious folks who may think that this is a real thing or believe that it's a real thing. Do you think anyone is going to buy in to believing that Lori thought her husband was possessed? I'm wondering if anybody else is going to go, oh, I've been there too. My uncle, Ned was possessed. And we called him Larry.
It was a significant part for the government's case because they're trying to say, hey, that gave Lori the righteous moral justification in her mind to kill Charles because she thought it wasn't even Charles anymore. It was like the zombie who's named Ned. That is, of course, extremely far-fetched. And I think that Lori should have considered a not guilty by reason of insanity plea because that requires a person not know right from wrong. And here, what it seems, according to Lori, is that that she thought she was doing right, and she was so spaced out that she didn't really understand the gravity of her actions, but no such defense was lodged.
But could she do that offense in Arizona? Was it even an option? I know it wasn't in Idaho. I don't know that it was an option here, or if she would have chosen to go down it too, I wonder.
I'm not certain.
Yeah.
I practice out of Colorado.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
most jurisdictions, they have not guilty by reason of insanity.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are requirements the court has for lodging that defense, including sometimes evidentiary showings and expert analysis. And it sounds like none of that was conducted.
And I'm wondering, should more states have that? From an attorney standpoint, is it something that is really more of a benefit to the courts, to the accused, to the victims, to have something like that out there where you can make that plea? Like I said, I know Idaho does not have it. That's why nothing took place up there. It seems that it would save a lot of money. It would save a lot of headache. I mean, I wanted to put a ticker in the corner of the screen when this thing was going on, just how much wasted money is flying out every single minute that we're paying attention to Lori Vallow Daybell. How many lives are being interrupted? How much money is being lost with these people who can't go to work? And in all of that, because that's a huge amount of money that totals up. And just the time that these people aren't going to get back because we have to address the insanity of Lori Vallow Daybell. Should this be everywhere? Should every place have the option for an insanity defense? Because, yes, there are people that are truly insane, and it doesn't know state lines. It is what it is, where it is.
I think 100%. One of the court's objectives is to punish people who done wrong and who know that they've done wrong. But when you have a person who is suffering from a mental disease or defect that is so profound that causes them to not know right from wrong, and then we just throw that person in a box, that's not really serving the court's rationale of punishing people who are knowingly committing wrongful acts. And so certainly I think every jurisdiction should have that if they don't already. And it is a frequent issue that arises in Colorado cases where I practice.
Yeah, it is that it's a frequent issue where it's allowed. I find it interesting where some states kind of pretend it's not a thing at this day and age. So, like, really, I feel like a lot of this could have been completely avoided had this existed there. She still actually technically has until Monday to decide whether or not she wants to do closing arguments. The judge said, "I'll give you till Monday. If you choose to, you can still, or to run a defense, I should say, not closing arguments." Do you think we're going to see a change of heart here when she goes back to jail this weekend and she's, sitting there in the knitting circle with her, other accused friends that are on death row and such? Somebody going to say, you really should argue this, Lori. I'm wondering if there's going to be a moment there of a change of heart.
With Lori Vallow Daybell, anything is possible. Could she have an epiphany over the weekend and say, "Oh my gosh, I actually have to come to my own defense, and I've got to present something to this jury that would counter the narrative the prosecution has presented this entire trial"? It's possible with her, and she's such a wild card that she's unpredictable. You don't know what she's going to do, and so I think everything's on the table still at this point.
I agree. I wouldn't put it past Lori to come back Monday and go, "I had a vision, and the vision told me that I need to do this." Nephi came down. He came into he was on the piece of toast I got from the commissary. His face was right there, and it said, "Lori testified." And she holds up a big piece of toast, and there's nothing on it. But
be a hearsay objection.
Exactly. She believes the toast inspired her to testify. It will certainly be very, very fascinating.
Want to stay on top of the latest true crime cases? Press subscribe now and never miss a breaking update from the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today.